In today's video, I'm going to give the 10 concept or the idea which is scientifically proven and described by the great peoples and thought leaders. And this is the reason to understand this concept is to make most out of the 25 whatever you have been doing or whatever we chasing for, whether it is a meaningful or not meaningful, whether it is a derived from our desperation or desires or the influence, or it is our willingness to choose our goals or our dreams. But how this all these concepts are parallelly and equally important to apply and understand in life, so that we can become much introspective, some respective, and become a objective rather than subjective to the concept or our goals. So that's the thing, but this is the core idea of sharing this concept. And this concept I have learned, or I have just come across while I was browsing through the Substacks, and one of the newsletter that is like the Prism. This guy is always sharing some kind of very unique and very rare and valuable concepts and ideas that will help us to navigate through the our challenges or the projects what we are dealing with. So here is the thing, I will just read some quotes and some the concept, and based on that I will share my perspective on this. The number one is that the finality principle. What is says is that whenever we experience something in our day-to-day life, it is not necessarily that it is a first time or a second time. Like one day we will do something for the last time and never know it. For example, we met something, our friend, may or may not be chances that we are going to meet him again in the life itself. So and arguing with our friends or the describing any kind of discussion is the thing that we must take in account, that this may be our last time interaction for us. So what Paul Ball has describing is that death is always on the way, but the fact that you don't know when it will arise seems to take away from the finishes of life. And it is that terrible precision that we hate so much, but because we don't know, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well. Yet everything happens a certain number of times, and very small numbers really. How many more times will you remember a certain afternoon of your childhood, some afternoon that's so deeply a part of your being that you can't even conceive of your life without it? Perhaps 4 or 5 times more, perhaps not even. How many more times will you watch the full moon rise? Perhaps 20, and yet it all seems limitless. So the idea is that we should consciously take into consideration any experience we are experiencing dealing with our goals or challenges. Then it may or may not be the one time or the last time. So we should take the timeline of that. Second thing is the cached thoughts. What does this mean is that most of your beliefs were formed earlier in your life when you were newer, and you continue to believe them only because you have never reconsidered them. When you are about to offer an opinion, consider when you formed it and ask, is it really your belief or your younger self? A belief is a belief, something like a very psychological thing or individual things which is derived from our values, or which may not be our innate thing, because a lot of beliefs has been built around the age of 7, because it has been considered that right from the beginning of our born to the age of 7, our subconscious mind is like a whiteboard, blank whiteboard, and whatever we pursue through that timeline of our grieving up, all the aspects like what is bad, what is good, what is not wrong, or what is true, what is not true, whatever the perception we are building out of the reality of the experience we are dealing. Though we are in fact we have no conscious control, we have no any understanding of world, but we are just sensing and expressing everything through our consciousness, that is the five perception of the reality. And those beliefs are so much hardwired and so much strong that we blindly believe through that, and we never question them and never try to reconsider them. So whenever we strike with any kind of strong belongingness or strong hatedness, resentment, we should ask ourselves that this belief is whether it is a build up in my childhood, or which is just I'm influenced by, or whether it is I have a conscious control on, or the conscious control over this or not, that based on that belief. And third one is the prospect theory. What does it mean? And what the author says is that people don't weigh gains and losses evenly. We hate losing money about twice as much as we like gaining it. So for instance, we we would need to gain 20 rupees to execute that pain of losing 10 rupees. This bias towards loss aversion is one of the foundation of economic behavior. It means it what is shows that we are so much attached, and we are so much focused and obsessed with not losing out something from us. We feel much bigger pain to losing of 20 rupees rather than to pleasure of the gaining 10 rupees in for some instance. And this fallacy or this theory is based on the inversion theory, where the pain of losing something is more than the pain of gaining. And that's the thing that we always try to avoid. We always try to you always uh, don't try to avoid the thing which is much painful. It means that we always much focusing on the not losing part, even though the reward of the gaining something is bigger than the losing. And fifth one is Gibson's law. For every PhD, there is an equal and opposite PhD. It is very fascinating and interesting. What the author is saying, that both sides in a court case or policy debates will have support from expert, no matter how crazy the position, because education doesn't make something right. It often just make them more skilled at beginning of wrong. This is very complex, even I can't comprehend this time, so I will not say anything about this law. And the sixth one is the champion's bias. What he says, that we assume winners have the best advice, but those who win rarely examine why they won, while those who lose often regretfully dwell on their mistakes. So you will often obtain the best advice on winning, not from winners but from the losers. We think that the advice, any guidance or anything is always right and true if it is given by the expert. There is no doubt they have experience, they have went through it, they have solved through them, they solve for themselves itself. And now if it is published for the general opinion or the general guidance, and we think that if we have a blind spot of belief or the expert paradox of expert, then we think that no, if this is stated by some of the authority and the expert, then it is the only way or only thing to go and adopt that. But actually that if we tried by ourselves and we went through our own experience, and what the advice or the comes from after encountering any errors or the mistakes, that was the most prominent advice or the guides will become for our challenge. And the sixth one is common knowledge effect. What does it tell is that groups are meant to be better decision makers than individuals because they combine many perspectives. But in practice, a group doesn't base its decision on the info specific to each member, but only on the info common to them all. This casts doubt on the idea that two heads are better than one, and helps explain why, despite popular wisdom, diversity generality does not make team better. So what is tell that there is no better thing to brainstorm from the group or over the teams. We cannot solely rely on our perspective or the our decision makings, but when it's come to make a decision with the help of groups, so we must describe or the we must emphasize or the deliver the different concept and ideas and brainstorming based on the group of the people. But the foundation is that there is no legitimate or solid groundbreaking information for the baseline for the group discussion or the group decision making is comes along, because it is differ from the every individual person. But if we think at a individualistic or the on the self concept, then it may or may not be applicable for a personal level. So what we have to do that we should not ignore the decision taken by the group of the peoples, but we have to also emphasize and we have to question around the our own perspective on that.